What's up, guys? Mako Chris coming at you from Detroit here. Hey, today we're going to be talking about how to make some stinger hooks. So up here in the Detroit River, and really anywhere, you can use stinger hooks. But what I learned up here is that you use them on everything, especially early in the season, because the walleye like to do a lot of short strikes. I would imagine that these are applicable to any type of fishing situation. You could run them as a backup hook for those short strike fish that won't quite bite on the lure. So we're gonna get started here. First thing, right? I got some good Suffolk 14-pound mono. I also went to Hobby Lobby and I got some seed beads. They're just simply called seed beads. There's these super tiny little red beads, and I use red. I imagine that you could use any color that you want to. I've never seen any other color, to be honest with you, but so I went with red. So the other thing you're gonna need is some sleeves, and I'll show you a picture of what these actually are. They're maline sleeves, and I have the diameter set. So this specifically correlates to your line. If you're using a specific diameter sleeve, it's gonna correlate to what size diameter your line is and what poundage test it is. So I also got some eagle claw hooks here. I got them off of eBay. It was a bulk order of 100 and they're size 10. Most guys run either a size 10 or a size 8. I myself like the size 10 a little bit better. It's all in your preference. I also go red. Again, I think the fish like the red for some reason. I think it's in their color spectrum. So I go red on all my stinger stuff that I can possibly go red on. Size 10, and these are 3 times the strength hooks. I don't like to go too strong with them because, again, if I do get a snag and get hooked up, I can simply pull really hard and bend these out and they'll come apart. For the most part, my jigs don't get snagged, but my stinger hooks do. All right, so I have one more thing that you guys will need. I made this myself. I use screws so that the eye of the stinger hook couldn't pop off. A lot of guys use nails. I think there's actually some products on walleye101.com that have a stinger jig kind of setup prefab for you. But this is a 2x1 and some screws that I had laying around in the garage. So there's actually 3.5 inches of space between these, and you'll see why here in a second. You can go shorter, go longer. Most guys run between 2 inches and 4 inches on their stinger hooks. Mine's kind of somewhere in the middle. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. To start this process out, I do everything in steps, all right? And I like to do it that way because it's more of a production style for me. Again, I buy 100 at a time, and I do the steps for all 100 at one time, and that way I can solely focus on the task at hand. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't have a standard measure system for this, but what I do is my table is 41 inches long. So I take it at the corner of that table and I go approximately half, right? And then I'm gonna cut this guy. Then I'm gonna take my eagle claw hook here and I'm gonna tie a Palomar knot. If you guys don't know what a Palomar knot is, go ahead and look it up online. There's 8 million tutorials out there on how to tie a Palomar knot. I do this on most of my hooks that I can get away with doing a Palomar knot on, simply because they're a really strong knot and you don't lose fish on them. It's actually got a double seal through them. And what I mean by that is the line's gonna actually be doubled up where you need it the most. And that's how that connects to this hook. All right, so you're gonna make a loop and basically you're tying an overhand knot here onto itself, all right? And then you're simply gonna pull this through. All right, once you pulled it through, you're gonna make sure that that your tag end's still up here, right? You're gonna take this and you're gonna pull it through the hook itself. Once I do that, I'm gonna make sure that my tag end's good. Now, a lot of guys use pliers to do this, but I use my teeth. Simply because it's field expedient. Now I know I'm in the house, not out on my boat, but I like to practice my knots and everything I do as if I were on the boat. That way it's, you know, it's ingrained and it's a fast process while I'm out there. So we're simply just gonna cut this tag end off with some scissors I have here. All right, and you want to get that pretty close as possible. All right. So what I would do now is if I was actually tying all these stingers, I would simply put them in a bag, and I already have a bag in place. All right. These are all the ones that I've done in the past week or so that are just simply set up like this. All right. So I would tie as many of these as I needed to tie, and I would throw them in that bag. All right. Now we're going to move on to the step 2 in this process. So what I like to do is I bought this canister at Hobby Lobby, and I bought these seed beads at Hobby Lobby. All right, I don't know how many there are, guys. There's probably 1,000 when I started. This jar was up to here. All right, and they're super cheap. I think I got all of these for under $3, right? I think the jar was like $2. So I dump a bunch of those out, and then I take my sleeves, and I recommend getting these from Bass Pro. These sleeves. They're the cheapest place around that I've found to get these at. So just a tip for you. And again, I'm just gonna spread out these guys, all right? So it's set up now that I can simply pull out these type of already pre-tied knots with my 14-pound mono on it, all right? So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my sleeve, right? And I'm gonna push it down through. All right, so that it's on the line. And then I'm gonna take my seed bead and I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it on the line, all right? Now, I'm gonna take this end and I'm gonna double it over on itself. So I'm gonna run down through the seed bead and I'm gonna run down through the sleeve. And sometimes, guys, these are pretty tricky. And that's gonna make a nice little loop. Don't pull this too far out. If you guys can see that, right, there's a nice little loop in it. All right, now I'm gonna slide. So again, guys, I would do a bunch of these at one time. All right, I would set them aside, have them land on my table like that. So that way, when I get ready to start tying, I can simply go into it, right? But for the sake of this video, guys, here's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna put this cap on these seed beads because these things are a pain in the butt to pick up. All right, so I got my stinger jig, right? I'm gonna set this up. All I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it over here, all right? Now, I'm gonna pull the tag end down through, all right? And I'm gonna hook it onto the hook. So it looks just like that, guys. All right, now, what we're gonna do is I don't need all this tag end, all right? So usually what I like to do is just trim it up just a little bit. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna tie an overhand knot into this thing, all right? So we're gonna make a loop, right? And then we're gonna go through it 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and 5, all right? Now, guys, what we're gonna do is you need some sort of something, right, to pull this down. Some guys use their finger. Some guys have a specialty setup for it. But what I like to use is a thumbtack. All right, so you're gonna take this thumbtack and you're gonna put it down in here. You're gonna draw back on this tag end, all right? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna slide that thumbtack down and it pops out, all right? Pull it tight, and then all you gotta do is pull this down, and that'll give you some slack on your hook. You pull it out, you pull this down a little bit, all right, guys, and here's a stinger. And what I do is I'll just take a pair of nail clippers, and I'll take it, and I'll cut it as close to that overhand knot as possible. I'll pull it up, and guys, here is a Detroit walleye stinger ready for action, all right? And that's what you're gonna get. All right. Super easy setup, and it works. You just slide this little loop up over your jig or lure, whatever you're using, and it'll be approximately 3 to 3.5 inches. I'm not precise with these, but I get them in the general ballpark. The Detroit River especially is known for its snags, so I always have a bunch on hand. So guys, if you like this video, go ahead, click that like button. If you want to see some more fishing videos, go ahead and subscribe. This is Mako Chris, and this is a stinger tied by hand.